Ryan and I just played Covenant. This is a new one from DeVere and designer Jermaine Milan. I think I'm pronouncing the name correctly. The designer of Bitoku.
Yep.
Men-Nefer, you said
which was one of my games of the year last year.
This one, some call it a worker placement game. Some, meaning me, might call it more like action selection. It's somewhere in between, but you are dwarves trying to effectively reclaim your civilization.
Yeah, there's a heavy inspiration here, and even they call out in the rule book like the inspiration from J.R.R. Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, because the idea is the dwarves lived in this mountain a long time ago, and over time that mountain has been overcome with these dark creatures, goblins, trolls, orcs.
Yep.
And they've kind of taken it over. So you are a dwarven clan, or multiple different dwarven clans, trying to kind of dig your way back into the mountain, fight the monsters, uncover all of the ancient treasures, and rebuild the Great Hall with your buildings. And kind of in a sandboxy way, you're just kind of doing a little bit of everything, and you're scoring points in all these different ways. You're going up tracks in all these different ways. You're getting bonuses in all these different ways. Like, I like that kind of gameplay.
Yeah, there's a lot to take in this game for sure. And then also, you're going to see a lot more to do. You might not get everything you want to get done. Players may have varying success in that respect. More on that later. But what you see here on the table, here on the main board, again, a lot going on. But you'll see it's segmented into sort of these different things that you can interact with, largely with the different actions that you'll take. But right here in the center, this is where the halls are. Each hall is one of these hexes, and all but these first four are face down, like these reddish ones here at the beginning of the game. One of the things you're going to do is to dig, and when you dig, you explore some of those, getting some of those bonus. Once they're open, you have the opportunity to build on them. They're going to be populated with those monsters. So the game kind of revolves around this quite a bit in terms as a central piece to the game. But around it, you're going to see things like gates that you can build. You're going to get those gates from the board by delivering goods or resources to these spots. Same with these columns. And you're going to take those to your board and then ultimately place them back out here to make your halls great.
Yeah, and then around the outside of the board, you're going to have all these little different bonuses that are going to tie into some of the actions you're taking that are going to make them better in some ways. You've got these relics you can gain that give you really powerful one-time abilities. You have these king's coins that kind of give you income every round. You can inlay some of these gems into your actions to make them stronger. You've got more actions that you can add to your board. You've got these tradition tiles that whenever you do an action, and generally that's going to give you something for doing it. So as you can see, there's a lot of different ways that you're going to kind of build out your board over the course of the game, including like a starting draft that kind of gets you started with some things. But you're really like kind of choosing what you want to do. But David was right when he said you're not going to do all of this, but you might focus on a thing or two. Like in my game or our game, my focus was going on the tracks. Like I was like, I'm just going to try to get as far on every track as possible. Where somebody else might say, I'm going to kill as many monsters as possible, or I'm going to build as many buildings on the board as I can build. All of these strategies are viable, and you can do a little bit of each one, or you can really try to focus on just one of those things.
Yeah, and I would say, like with many Euros, you're going to most likely want to focus on one or two of them in a more significant way, and then maybe dabble in the others. I think we've only played it once, so it remains to be seen whether or not we could actually do a little bit of everything and do well. But yeah, there's a lot of different things to do. And Ryan mentioned our player boards. There's also a lot going on there.
Yeah.
But the large thing here is the way the game plays is you're going to have these dwarves, and you start out, the dwarves are at strength of 1. They can go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 over the course of the game. Think Caverna in that respect in terms of powering them up. But on your turn, you're going to take one of your dwarves and you're going to assign them to one of the actions on your board. At the beginning of the game, everyone has 4 actions. They're the 4 main actions of the game. And like Ryan alluded to, you can actually get more of those actions. And all of these are the same, save one, which is the read action. It's the book that kind of gives you the opportunity to go there and choose which of the 4 actions you want to go to. But you go to one of those actions and you take that main action. And if that space is inlaid with one of those inlays, you could also take that, which is effectively a bonus. It's not usually another action,
but sometimes
it can be kind of like
it's like part of doing an action, like one that lets you build one building on the border. Some things that let you just go up these tracks naturally. Like there's a lot that's going on this player board. And that's one thing that I want to say about this game before we go any further, because what I really love about games is that everything you're doing does something else. So like when you're buying these tiles, you're taking these tiles, you're putting them on your board, you're unlocking extra actions for yourself, but you're also getting some bonuses that you're covering. And then those bonuses that you're covering might allow you to do something else that you couldn't do, or those inlays might give you access to something and you can do that first, and you can use these relic tiles. Like there's always just like so much you can do in this game. And if it does feel overwhelming, I think that's, something that will maybe be a little easier over time, but also the game itself kind of divides the board up into these little subsections. So if you're ever feeling like really overwhelmed, you're just like dial in your focus and like just pay attention to that one thing, because that's really all you're doing, for that particular turn.
Yeah, and that kind of goes hand in hand with kind of boiling down to those 4 actions too. If you just remind yourself on your turn, you're taking 1 to 4 actions. And in fact, if you don't have a lot of extra actions on your board, you are limited more and more each turn of the round, because you're going to have 4 dwarves. There's 3 rounds and you take 4 turns each. So at the beginning, if I take the mining action for the rest of that round, I'm unlikely to take the mining action again unless I do something that gives me another mining action to add to my board. Otherwise, you're basically just going through the 4 actions. And once you've done all of those 4 actions, you're done. But later, when you have more of those actions, I might get 2 more mining, so that I do a mining and I do another mining and I do another mining all in one round, where other players might not have that and they mine once during that round. So it really leads to a different situation. For example, you can see this mining track, which is you're going to go down when you take mining actions. Ryan's down here at 14. I'm back at 4 because he added some mining actions very early to his board, and he was able to do that quite a bit more.
Yeah, like I said, I tried to focus on going down those tracks, but like that's a good point that feeds back into the whole idea of like your player board is going to become its own thing. You see here where we do the actions. Putting these action tiles out, it doesn't just give you the bonuses that are underneath it, although these bonuses are huge for doing particular strategies. They also unlock some new scoring elements. So each time you place one of these down, you're basically saying, I'm going to score whatever's in that column. And since I put 2, what they're called tools, since I put 2 tools in the same column, I'm going to score this twice. And it's worth noting that these player boards are asymmetric.
Yeah.
Everything is kind of, you have the same 4 actions, but they're kind of mixed up. The way that your scoring is mixed up down here, the different bonuses you're getting for covering things are mixed up. The different color combinations with the actions are all mixed up. So every time you sit down with a different player board, you're kind of saying like, okay, well, some of these, like there's the silver inlays and the gold might be better, which means maybe I want to focus on doing those gold actions so that I can, eventually inlay. Like you have a lot to think about. Not to mention, I talked a little bit about these tradition tiles, and these are things that just make something about your game better.
Yeah, they're like ongoing abilities,
like ongoing
if you will.
powers. And you're going to start the game with one that you draft. And so from the very beginning of the game, you're going to have at least one focus where it's like, okay, well, I'm really good. I'm better than anyone else at doing this one thing.
Same with these objectives. At the beginning of the game, there's a number of different types of tiles that are laid out. There's going to be a starting resource tile, these objective tiles, the tradition tiles that Ryan just mentioned, I think one other actually. And you're going to get 2 of these objectives. These also will give you that sort of like direction that you want to take. I got one that gave me points at the end of the game for the tradition tiles I had. So I decided I was going to get all the tradition tiles. Now, the interesting thing about these objectives is it's tied to the tracks. Like Ryan was saying, everything is connected in this thing. So if you don't go down any of the tracks, well, forget about your objectives because you're not scoring them. To score one of the 2 of them, you need to have gone down enough tracks to go past 4 of these little star lines on all of the tracks.
Yeah, achievements.
Achievements. If you go by 8 of those, then you could score both of your objectives. Not to mention there's actually scoring innate in going past as many of those as possible.
If you can get to the end of all the tracks, which I did not do, even though I focused on it.
You got past 9, right?
I think I got 10. And
10.
I think there was a couple more I missed. But yeah, and all of this comes back down to the 4 actions. Now, something to note here, we'll talk about the 4 actions briefly because they're actually pretty simple in just what you're doing. Each of the 4 actions gives you access to a different section of the board like we talked about. So and they're all kind of tied together. Like dig, for example, is how you're going to get resources in the game. And we should note like the strength of your worker often dictates how well you can do the action. You do get these little like power up tokens, these beer tokens, support tokens that you can apply to them to kind of increase their strength by up to 2, but never more than +2.
Right.
and you'll get to do the action a little bit better. Like, so for example, when you're digging, you come up to this whole section of the board here, and it kind of shows you, well, this is the cost to dig. And if I have 4 total power in digging, I can split that up amongst all these different resources, and I can dig them out. Once you dig them, the game says, okay, well, if you dug 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, or if you dug at least 5, then you get to go up some tracks, and then you get to come out here and explore. Like, it kind of just handholds you and kind of shows you, okay, first you're getting resources, then you're exploring to flip over a tile, which is potentially going to get you some more resources, some movement on the track, some different bonuses and things like that. And that feels like a very lucrative action, but what you're going to learn, I think, is that all of them kind of feel that way.
Yes, all of the actions definitely give you more than you would expect when you first start playing this, because it'll almost feel like it's comboing. Like Ryan mentioned earlier, when you're adding tiles to your board,
Yeah.
you're not just getting that tile, you're getting the stuff on that board. You're not just getting the stuff on the board, you're getting that scoring opportunity as well. And the same goes for this. Just like Ryan explained with Dig, the skirmish, which is when you fight the monsters, can feel very much the same way. When you skirmish, again, you're going to place a dwarf on that spot, maybe with a support token. Let's say I go out with a power of 4. I can go out and defeat a couple different monsters. The trolls cost 3 of that. I assume these are the orcs are 2, and the goblins are 1. And you can defeat whatever enemies that are out there. This is an end game state, so we have one lonely troll here.
We killed a lot of enemies.
We took a few of them out. But when you take them out, you're going to put them actually over on your player board where you can store them, and at the end of each round or era, you're actually going to score some points for those. But you can only hold so many because you need keys, and those keys are connected to the spaces over here. Again, with that massive interconnectivity of the game. And then finally, you're going to go up a track and roll this dice after you take the reward that's showing on the dice. So you'll take whatever the reward is, roll that dice up so people can see there's a variety of rewards for effectively killing a couple goblins.
Yeah, and you're already kind of starting to see how these actions interact with each other, because it is exploring the tiles. When you reveal them, you add monsters to them. So when you end up in a situation where there's no monsters to fight, you want to fight, you hope somebody goes to dig first. They dig, they flip over a tunnel, they add more monsters, then you can fight. Both of these things, the digging and the combat, gets you resources, and you're storing those resources on your player board, and then you're spending those resources primarily to deliver, which is the third action that you can do, which is actually to come out here and deliver to these different areas of the board. You're basically taking goods and you're getting a building back, not to put it on the board, but literally to take that building. Like once you've delivered 3 goods or 2 goods or 1 good or whatever, you're literally taking those buildings and putting them on your player board to then build later with the fourth action.
Yeah, the build action lets you do a variety of things, but it's all related to putting buildings out here. There's a few different buildings. You've got these houses. I think these are forges. Then the tall pieces, I think are what? Pillars, and then gates. They all go on the board slightly differently. So the basic buildings, which are the houses and the forges, will go on the tiles themselves. And you can see some of the tiles, they have these little diamonds on them that show how many buildings in total, basic buildings, can be on that tile. Once you have a building there, you can't put another building there, but another player could, because there is some presence scoring at the end of the game. Interesting thing here, though, are the gates and the pillars. When you place a gate, you're placing it between 2 of the tiles. The pillars go in the middle of 3 of the tiles. Regardless of whatever you build, there are charts for each type of building that show you all the different things you get depending on the tile types that you place them on. So when you build a pillar, you can look and go, oh, I could place a pillar like I did right here next to this gold vein that were in these tiles and go up 1 track 3 times, which can be pretty powerful because as you go up these tracks, you're getting a lot of these bonuses that Ryan talked about around the edge. When you go up this track, you get the relics. When you go up this track, you get these coins. These coins, again, talk about combos. You go up this track, you get one of these coins, you take the coin, you place it across the top of your board. It's going to give you what's printed beneath it immediately when you place it. So if I placed right here, oh, look, I get a relic, so I can take a relic. But on the coins, there are also rewards, and you're going to get those during the council phase, which happens between each era. It's kind of like production. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like from those, and those are the 4 basic actions. When you take more actions, that's just the same actions, and they're all repeated except for that one that's a wild. So what you're not going to see is an action to build a tool.
Yes.
What you're not going to see is an action to get a coin. You're not going to see an action to sock it. You're not going to see an action to get a relic. To get all of these things, you need to find other ways. The tradition tiles, you need to find them. You can find them by going up some of these tracks. You can find them as the printed bonus. Whenever you flip one of these tiles, you get the printed bonus. You can place your coins in such a way that you'll like maybe get a relic or use a relic to get one of the other things. The whole meat of the game for me is finding those opportunities and saying, how do I get new tools? Like where do I see this symbol that it's going to let me build new tools? Or like, where do I get coins? Okay, I can go up this track, and finding the potential to like really combo those turns. Like what David kind of described, taking one of these coins and like putting it here to build a tool, and taking the tool and placing it here, and then getting the things that the tool covered. Like you can have some really, really meaty turns in this game. For sure.
You do have to hunt for those. And I would say that brings me to a point that I'd want to make. If you like games that have opportunities to seize, this game has that in some respects. Now, with that said, a lot of the things Ryan just mentioned, they all can be found on your board in one place or another. So everyone's going to get, at least built into their own situation, an opportunity or two to grab a relic or to build a new tool. But if you want to build even more, or find more relics, you do have to look for them. You have to be on the lookout for them out here on some of the backs of these tiles. You can see a lot of the tiles we flipped have some of those. And these are mostly going to be effectively randomly put out at the beginning of the game. So some of those could be tiles that are available to explore immediately at the beginning of the game. Some of them you might have to dig more and more, or all the players at the table, to get further out to sort of these reaches. You can see here's one of those King's coins that we've just barely gotten to.
Yeah, and if you're watching this video right now and you're looking at this and saying, boy, that's really filled up just for a 2-player game. We didn't mention this. We're playing on the solo and 2-player side of the board. There is a flip side if you're playing for 3 to 4 players. There's going to be more tiles out, so you will potentially have more opportunities to get it. But it is, like, I got a lot of tools on my board, and the way that I did that was, like, I watched, and I saw a relic pop up that was like, this relic just gives you a tool. It's like, okay, I'm going to make sure I grab that relic before David does. Or you'll see a tile out here that's like, oh, if somebody explores here, then I have access to the one that gives me the tool. So timing is a big part of it. And again, with those tradition tiles, they're not all created equally necessarily for your strategy. I got one right at the start of the game. The one I drafted was
that was good.
Getting a support token every time I moved up cross one of these track lines. And of course, like if you've ever watched the channel, you know that I like tracks. So this was very appealing to me. It's like, I'm just going to continue. Like I barely even leveled up my dwarves. I just tried to go up those tracks, and it really worked out well for me.
Yeah, on the flip side, I was lured by the leveling up of the dwarves, which is this little icon right here. And you'll find it in a variety of different places. I jumped on one immediately when I got this coin because I wanted the dwarves to be more powerful, to do more things. Like Ryan said, when you go to mine, you get more if your dwarves are more powerful. That's the case with all the things. You can deliver more or transport more resources to these monuments. And even those monuments we kind of glossed over, but once you've delivered a maximum amount to each location, you're going to be able to not only secure the building of your color from that spot, but you can place one of your markers out here and usually go up one of the tracks pretty significantly.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, everything you're kind of doing is earning points. A lot of the actions just have innate points into them, and then every round, at the end of the round during the console phase, it gives you some new ways to score points. One of those ways is just on the monsters that you've captured and fought. You can just get some points for those. You might have some of these tradition tiles that give you points or other things that happen during the campfire phase, the council phase. You're getting all your income during that phase, but the huge thing are these 3 scoring tiles. And there's 3 rounds in the game, or 3 eras. And we've seen this kind of done before, but what's interesting is you score the one for your current era and each one before it. Yeah. So if the first era scoring is not something that you're ready to do, or maybe it's something that requires too much work for you to get done in that first era, you can still score it in the second and third eras. But if you really load up on it early, you'll score those points potentially 3 times in the game.
Yeah, exactly. That's really important. When you look at these, the way they're laid out, this one's only going to be scored once. This one will score twice. This one will score 3 times. So I actually had some tiles that synergized with this. It didn't end up working out for me too well. But all in all, in the end, we did very different things. As you can see on the board here, Ryan's way past me on this track, way past me on that track. Same with that track. During the game, I was ahead of him on points most of the time because I had a couple of these council phase tiles for tradition.
You were quite a bit
gave me some points. I was getting points all along the game. In the end, he beat me fairly soundly, but not crazily so. What are you, at 82 or 83?
Yeah.
And I'm at 65.
And there's 2 reasons that I beat you like that. One was that I took pretty much every opportunity that there was to add a tool to my board, I took. I took the relic to add a tool. I took the tiles to add a tool. I took every bonus I could to add a tool because, like I said earlier, when you're adding a tool, you're not just giving yourself more flexibility, you're giving yourself scoring. And like I scored quite a bit of points from filling up some of these columns in my player board to get those points at the end of the game. And we were kind of focused on our deliveries. You can deliver out here to get these buildings, but there's one other place you can deliver. You can deliver to the throne and try to like build up the king's throne. Whoever delivers the most gets 6 points. And I was the only one. I delivered one good. You let me have it for one good.
Exactly.
So that was some points.
And the thing is, you can actually deliver leftovers there too, because usually when you're delivering, you have to deliver to one location. And if you can deliver more goods than it takes, so if I had 2 there and I delivered here with the power of 2, I can deliver one more, but I've met my maximum there, so I can deliver one more. You can take it over there. I just never did that, so it never worked out for me.
Yeah, and I think so that's a big part of the game. Like you said this earlier, seizing opportunities. And so like we'll kind of like talk about, who this game is for, not for. I'm going to be very blatant and clear that this game was 100% made for me. This is a game of the year kind of contender. This is the kind of game I love where you're just like staring at the board and you're seeing these juicy opportunities present yourself. It's like, oh, well, if I take this tile, I move up on this track enough to get a coin. And if I take this coin, I don't care if I'm spending up to 3 victory points on that, whatever. If I take this coin, it's going to eventually, like every income, I'm going to move up this track and I'm going to get a relic right now. And that's how I get the relic that lets me build a building. I use that relic or a tool. I use that relic to build a tool. Like that's a big turn. And you can get those turns. Like you can watch this board and be like, watch these dice and see when is the die, the face that lets you move up a track. Like, and then that's the time you want to conquer, or like things like conquest. And that, like, for me, that is a very, very appealing turn. Like that's a very appealing design for the game.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I love that sort of thing too. I love it in a different way than Ryan does. So for me, with a game like this, it takes me a little longer to grok. And I would say, had I played this with Emily, this is like kind of to let him in a way in that there's all these little disparate parts that you go, oh, wait a minute, I can do what I want to do here. If I do this, and it's going to give me this little bitty bonus that like lets me do this and this, and it solves the puzzle. And when Emily and I would generally play that, we would end up playing each other's games. Sure. Like we'd basically sit there and go, okay. And we did that a little too yesterday when we played this.
Once we kind of understood a little bit better, like And this is the kind of game where I said when we sat down for our first play, there is so much happening and there are so many different ways to score points that I kind of was like, I took the track route because I was like, I understand that going up tracks is generally good. Going up tracks in this game, it doesn't necessarily give you points. Like you don't get points for going up the tracks, which is nice, I think, because that might snowball a bit because you do get so many other benefits for going up the tracks that are helpful in other ways. But you almost want to just play to find out what happens. You've got 4 actions here and it's like, well, for the first round, like David said earlier, if you don't buy another tile, if you don't find a way to get one of these tiles on the first round, you are doing all 4 of those actions.
Yeah, and rounds 2, if you just have the 4, it starts to feel like, oh, I should have built a tool. Like if there's one piece of advice I'd almost always give, and this is, again, admittedly after just one play, I can't imagine me playing this again and not making sure that I build at least another tool so that in the second era, I'm not limited to mostly just those 4 actions. Because you're absolutely going to get into a situation where you're like, oh man, I wish I could deliver again this round. And if you haven't taken another delivery tool action, you're not going to.
Or conversely, for me, what like really clued me in on that was that I only had, like I saw that I was going to have the deliver action was the last action I was going to take. And I didn't want to deliver. And there might even be some situations where you can't deliver because you have no resources, or situations where you can't fight because there's nothing to fight. You don't want to be stuck with an action that you can't take. So even just taking one of those, it says, okay, well, I have a little bit more flexibility. I don't have to do all 4 actions. I can skip delivery a couple rounds when I don't have anything to deliver.
Yeah, I think if you're a player who likes that tense feeling of like, oh, this is what I want to do. How do I do this? You're going to love this game. I think this game does that. Now, on the flip side, there are players who don't like that feeling, where you feel like restricted. This game definitely feels, ironically, where you can take some turns that feel like, oh my gosh, look at all the little combo-y things that I just did. But at the same time, you're going to find yourself at times where you like want to take a type of turn and you can't figure out how to take that type of turn that you want to take. Now, whatever turn you take might be somewhat productive, but you're going to run into those walls where you're like, I don't want to, I'll do this and it'll be good, but I really needed and wanted to do this because maybe it would set up the rest of your game a little bit better than what you were doing.
Oh, for sure. There is a big aspect of that. And the whole goal of this game, at least like when I'm playing the game, is to never take an inefficient turn, right? Like we have like players that are like that. Like I don't want to be stuck with an action. So you want to make sure, and like I'll admit, it can lead to some AP. Even like for me, there was definitely some turns where I was like, I think I could feel it internally that I'm staring at this board a little too long. Now, that will go away with future plays because it becomes more obvious. Like, oh, I know I can generally look to this action to get these things. But like for our first play, it's like, how do I get this? Like I'm one resource short of my delivery. Like what can I do to get one extra resource? Can I find a way to squeeze one extra resource out of this turn? And that can lead to some time.
For sure. And with all that said, regardless of where you land on those sorts of things, this is a really well-designed Euro.
Yeah.
I think anyone who's looking for the next fun Euro, and also very approachable, nice theme. I love the way this game looks. I love the artwork up into and including the front of the box is very cool. And the last thing I want to comment on is, I know if you play a lot of board games and a lot of Euros in general, you probably know that De Vere's rule books have been up and down at times. I would say this rule book is pretty solid. I read this. I taught this. There is one thing we wanted to point out. If you're going to find yourself playing this anytime soon, this track over here for the relics, it's not made crystal clear.
It's not implicit.
It's not implicit. You could infer this, but it's not implicit that these relics are acquired in a very significant way. Obviously, whenever you trigger this bonus icon on things like here on your board and maybe on some other tiles, you get to take one of the relics from wherever you are on that track or up. You can take one of the relics, which is also sort of signified by some of these markers. But it also allows you to, as you dig and go past those spots, to do the same thing, which the other tracks have the icon shown on the thing. And I think what they were trying to do here was use this tile itself as the icon. Reminder. And we didn't catch that at first. And we were like, and there's nothing, again, in the rule book that makes that clear, but it's definitely something to keep in mind because it would drastically impact your experience if you didn't play that.
Well, yeah, we were kind of deciding that, like you said, like it is very, very, very clear. And the rule book says, like, get whatever rewards are printed on the track. So we're like, okay, well, that's very clearly printed on the track. Those are very clearly printed on the track. Not so clearly printed on the track. So we actually had like a little, and we talked to the designer, but that is, every time you cross one of these or get to this reward, you get to take that one or any of the one before it, which is a pretty cool.
And you get more relics than you'd think because
for sure.
Without that, we were like, well, wait a minute, we're not getting any relics. So we rectified it pretty early on and caught it. But that is Covenant. If you have any questions at all, please make them in the comments below. We'll get down there and answer whatever we can and tell you about our experience. Until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.